Welcome, ladies and gents. Chris Andre here. You can find me at BetBoxing on Twitter. Of course, you can subscribe to the channel. Let's talk boxing. Let's talk about that Frank Warren undercard. Really enjoyed it. We'll talk predominantly about Hamza Shiraz and also Dennis McCANN, but I also want to touch on Mark Heffron and Lennox Clarke. Really good win for Heffron. He was really picking his shots well. We'll get to that in a moment, though, because initially I put out on Twitter to say, great performance, but I thought it was a little bit of a premature stoppage. Having then seen the replay, I can totally understand why the referee gave the stoppage, because although I felt that Clarke was lucid, and clearly he was very angry at the stoppage, he pushed the referee, then he pushed Heffron as well after the fight. He seemed ready to go. He was furious. He was clearly lucid, right? But because he'd stumbled prior to that, and he had been hurt in the previous round as well, the referee probably saw it as, okay, he's been stumbled, he's hurt, and he's not throwing back. And Heffron was very, very accurate. So I do take back that tweet, having seen the replay. I thought the referee's, stoppage was acceptable. He could have let it go on another 10 seconds. We know that Clarke is the sort of guy that can have a crisis and survive from that and come back strong. But yeah, I can't say it was a terrible stoppage or anything like that. In terms of Heffron, I was really impressed with the shot selection and the way he was picking his shots. And I loved the corner work from Joe Gallagher. At one point he said to him, listen, I want you to think of Liam Smith. I want you to think of John Murray. Touch, touch, whip. In other words, he wants you not to throw everything a million miles an hour. I don't want you to go in there and just start swinging for the fences with every shot and try to take his head off. Use misdirection, use touching to open up a guy's guard, get him to react to shots to create an opening, and then you sit on that shot. So Gallagher was perfectly right to say that. Really good advice, and he was able to do that, Heffron, and he was very accurate with his shots as a result of that, and it makes all the difference. So it's a really good performance to him. Well done to him. Moving on to Dennis McCann. You know, I love watching Dennis McCann. At times it's just some beautiful stuff to behold, but I notice on my timeline there's an awful lot of criticism of him. You know, I know there are a lot of people that are not sold on him. They question his power, they question, a lot of people even find him boring. I don't see that at all. I think he's hugely entertaining. He applies a lot of pressure with his feet, and he's very, very active in there. There's a lot of action in there, and he lures you into shots and then he counters you with it. There was a lovely uppercut that started off the onslaught in the first round, whereby Beech tried to change levels, and when he suddenly tried to change levels, for the fighter that's attacking him to adapt and catch him with an uppercut so accurately, it's not an easy skill to do. Look out for it. Even top level fighters, when guys change their level quickly on them and they dip to the side, they struggle to find the target quite often. He didn't have that problem. He was very accurate with it, so he can adapt off the fly. Additionally to that, in the second round, for instance, there was this lovely slip and then uppercut to the body. So he's varied with his shots when he does slip too. He sees shots coming. He's just a very, very talented fighter. And yes, okay, we get it. He's not a monster puncher, but there's enough pop there. The geezer's only 21 years old. He's going to develop a bit of man strength to come, and that's going to make him a lot more entertaining. That's not to say he's the complete perfect fighter. There are some things he needs to work on. First and foremost, when he does get an opponent hurt, I think he needs to work a little bit on his hooking technique. There were times where, unlike Heffron, who was picking his shots, punch, touch, touch, whip, there wasn't much of that. He hurt Beech and he was like, okay, now I'm going to jump on this guy. And he starts throwing these frenetic hooks. And yes, he dropped him, but it was more overwhelming in terms of what Beech had to face in that moment rather than being destructive. You knew Beech was going to get up, whereas had he been slightly smarter with his shot selection and with his punching technique, turn the knuckle over, make sure what you're landing is a big shot, you might have thrown 10 punches less in your 20 punch combination or whatever it was, but you might have picked your shots better and landed more flush shots and gotten him out of there, instead of a lot of these shots sort of landing with the inner part of the glove and being slapping type of shots. So there's a shot selection thing there when he gets a guy hurt. Don't get as excited, but like I said, he's 21 years old, right? He's inexperienced. He's going to learn from these things. The other thing is that there's a slight tell sometimes on his entry point. He's got quite a wide stance at points, despite the fact that he's so mobile. But he's not particularly square on with it. And what he'll do is that he'll have 1 foot forward and 1 foot back, and he'll shift weight from his back foot, which is his backhand, his left hand, and then he'll slip to the right hand. Okay, so it's not a slip, it's more like a pendulum type movement. And as he steps onto that lead foot, he's there potentially to be hit, because as he steps onto that lead foot, he'll either throw or it's a feint. If he throws and you punch with him, he doesn't always get out of the way of it. And what he'll do to cope with that is he'll dip inside. So as he leans onto that lead foot, if you then throw a hook, he'll dip inside to take the power off the hook. But then that potentially leaves you open to then a follow-up shovel hook from the other side. So there are areas there where he can get clipped, and he did get a cut above his right eye. So that slight tell, you might be able to start to read his movement of the way he shifts weight from one foot to the other, which puts him in a position where he's not quite as mobile. Because when he's in that frame of mind of I want to be mobile and I want to move around the ring, he's very hard to get to and he'll punish you for falling short. So superb talent, no doubt about it. But there's a slight tell there with a little bit of that movement. I'd like to see him sort of work on entry points that are a little bit more unpredictable. Use a few more foot feints, shifting your weight in a different manner in order to enter and stuff like that. Move it, but what a talent. I love him personally. I don't get why people are so critical. Let me know what you think. Moving on to Hamza Shiraz. Listen, we know that Sheeraz on paper is hugely exciting, right? A highly exciting prospect. 10 fighters in a row now he's gotten out there. He's knocked out. That is impressive. On paper, you look at that, you think 6'2" or 6'3", middleweight, whatever he is, with a knockout ratio where he's just destroying everybody. You're looking at it, you're thinking this guy's going to be a monster. But there is a slight weakness there. This guy today that he faced, Torres, was kind of tailor-made for him because although they referred to him as slick, for a big man, yes, he could move a little bit. He was 6 foot himself. But he was quite tailor-made for Sheeraz in the sense that he would enter often with his head on a stick, chin up in the air. Sheeraz, what made him struggle so much against Bradley Skeet was Skeet's movement and fluidity, the upper body movement, changing the levels. And Sheeraz, who would want to walk you down behind that high guard and punch off of that, very nice jab, but very, very orthodox in his style. One of the problems with that is that that movement makes it a harder target to find. So that's what I really want to see Sheeraz work on. And I'm sure he's working on that in the gym. But in terms of an opponent, it's hard for me to get overly excited about what he's doing right now because although I think he's brilliant at one style of thing, I think that there are some weaknesses there in terms of facing a guy who's an unstable target. If you're an unstable target and you're up against him and you're constantly moving, it can make him uncomfortable when he has to reset. So yes, I'm loving what I'm seeing from Sheeraz, but I'm not completely sold just yet. And he seems like a great kid. He seems ambitious. I'm sure he's aware of his own limitations. I'm sure they're going to be working on it in the gym. And there's no doubt that he could get very, successful with his aims and his goals. So I'm not trying to mug off Sheeraz, but there is work to be done in my opinion. I can't get too excited over guys that I think are tailor-made for him that he's blowing out of there. I still want to see that adaptability and that variation. Let me know what your opinion is on everything we've spoken about. Thanks for watching, everyone. Please don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe button, and notifications button. Take care. God bless.